one day you go from being sheltered and everything is taken care of for you as a kid. You don't have to think about it. You don't think about, oh, paying the bills or any of that stuff, right? Paying rent or how you need to do certain things or how certain things work in the household. It's just been done for you by your parents or somebody else. And then it's like, welcome to age 18, throw you into the deep end, and you're expected to know these things. And the scary part is that if you make an error on certain things like your credit or right on how those things work, that can damage you for decades as an adult.
Or not even build your credit.
Exactly. I still feel sometimes like a kid. Like I don't know what the heck I'm doing. I'm just kind of like figuring it out like the rest of us. And that's, I think, one of the really important realizations that I came to learn over the years is that nobody ever really has it figured out.
No. Welcome to the Magnetic Mismatch Show. This is Linda.
And this is Will. And I have holes in my shirt.
You always have holes in your shirt.
This is a brand new shirt. Look, guys. I don't know if you can see this. I'm showing on YouTube, but dude, every time, I don't know why.
I feel like you have holes in every shirt for some reason.
It's so weird.
It's so weird.
It doesn't happen to you.
No.
Right?
And you've I told you to lower the temperature in the dryer and to do a low spin cycle, and it's still ripping. I just don't know why. What you're doing?
Yeah, I just looked it up. Did a quick Google search to see if other people may have been encountering the same issues, and it seems like it's a common issue.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to make myself feel better. Yeah. But if you're listening and this has you've been experiencing similar issues, please tell me. I need to fix this, because every time I buy a new shirt, I get so frustrated and scared. Like, oh man, it's going to have holes again. Yeah. Then once it has holes, I can't wear it going out. I could still wear it at home for like PJs or something, but then you start making fun of me.
Yeah, like figure out how to do laundry correctly and not ripping your shirt is part of adulting.
It's part of being an adult. And that kind of nice little segue where we're actually, it relates to our topic today, which is adulting. Where's the manual to being a grown-up?
Yeah.
Right?
There isn't.
Did you ever get the manual? Because I clearly did not get the manual.
No.
On how to be an adult. And
I mean, I feel more like an adult now.
And we're in our 30s now.
Yeah, but during my 20s and 30s, mm-hmm. I'm expected to look somewhat put together, and like I have it all figured out. Right? That was like in my head when I was younger. Before I turned 18, I'm like, yeah, when I'm 20, I am going to have life figured out.
Right?
And boy, was I wrong.
I think that's the funny thing. It's like, I remember as a kid, like you wanna be an adult so badly, right?
Yeah.
You're thinking about like, I can't wait till I hit 18. I'm gonna be an adult. I'm gonna be a grown up, right? And now I can sleep late whenever I want. I can eat junk food all day. I can buy what I want. I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
And you do, right? Like when you go to college or when you start living on your own for the first time, you kind of go ham and and just start doing everything, right? All the little childhood fantasies.
Yeah.
But then what you don't realize is there's a lot that comes with being
an adult,
right? A quote unquote responsible adult.
Yeah.
Even right now, like I'm in my mid 30s now, and I feel like I'm still a kid. Like even though I look a little bit older, okay, a little bit older, even though
Will's in denial.
I've done a lot of grown up things like pay my rent, right? I have a car of my own. I have a job, so that's good. That's a grown up thing, right? That's a grown up thing. But there's days like that I just still feel like I'm 18 years old. Still feel like a kid.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you ever feel that way?
Yeah, all the time. And I think my problem is like when I look at my friends or my parents, it just looks so refined and put together, you know?
It's like, damn, they have everything figured out.
Yeah. And you know, I feel like I pretend to be that way, but behind the scenes, it's like a mess.
I
I'm
don't
s-
think you pretend to be that way. I think it's more like,
well, it's not like I pretend to be that way. I try to put my best foot forward and
yeah,
and be the most presentable version of myself,
right, right.
right? But behind the scenes, I'm like,
I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where I'm going. Right. I haven't gotten it's all figured out. Yeah.
yeah. But then a part of me, I get a glimpse of, oh, I'm becoming an adult
Right.
when, you know, for Christmas, you know, you always ask me, what do I want for Christmas? Because you always try to pick a category that'll, you know, that it's useful to me, right? So we're not just wasting our money on gifts. When this year I told you I don't want anything, and you told me the same, and my suggestion was, why don't we get new pens?
Oh my God. Is that just us getting older?
Yeah. Or like I was excited over my vacuum slash mop.
Yep. Yeah. I don't know if that's just a sign of age or if that's a sign of
I'm just
maturity. Right.
just being responsible.
Yeah. The way you think and what's important now versus what was important before is very different.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, I guess like I think with life, there is no instruction manual, right? Nobody's going to be like, here's exactly how you should live your life. But I think that's a good thing too, in a way,
Yeah.
because everybody has their own journey. And part of life is being able to figure things out through experiencing them, not by somebody telling you, step by step what you need to do.
Yeah.
But I will say that I wish that there was a little bit more guidance.
You know, I think I wish there was a more of a
Right.
transitional period, because you know, from 17.
No, from the time you're born till you're
Well,
yeah.
what by the time you're like 17, from the time you're born, you're getting nurtured and, you know, taken care of by your family, your parents, you know, school, everything is structured, right? And then suddenly from, you know, 17, the next day you turn 18, you're expected to make adult decisions.
Welcome to adulthood.
You know, and as an 18-year-old, you're expected to make decisions that will and may affect you for the rest of your life. You know, that's why, I mean, this is a little off topic, but that's what they were talking about, expensive school tuitions, where, you know, a lot of kids, or technically adults, right? By the time you're 18, you go to college and you have to make decisions of whether you want to borrow thousands of dollars,
hundreds of thousands of dollars,
in some cases hundreds of thousands, depending on, you know, if you're a private school or public school, and you don't know better, so you sign it, and next thing you know, you graduate and you're responsible for this huge lump sum of money. And depending on your background, right, you can, or you may or may not go to your parents for guidance on stuff like that. I know, like for us, our parents didn't know, you know, the college system or the financial importance of whether you should borrow money or shop around for a better interest rate, right? It's huge if, you know, you have that leg up. I mean, I got lucky because I went to a state school and I didn't end up borrowing that much money, but nonetheless, I still had to borrow.
Right. Yeah, and that like our parents would have loved to give us. I think we would have gotten that guidance from them if they themselves had been through that process before. But like I think we talked about in one of our previous episodes, you know, our parents weren't born in this country, right? They came as immigrants. And so they themselves, like, how are they going to guide us?
They're still trying to figure it out.
Yeah, they don't know better. But so it was kind of up to us and trying to figure it out. And when you realize like, oh, go to college, that's the thing to do, right? That's what you're supposed to do. And student loans kind of go hand in hand. You just, like you said, when you really think about it, it's kind of like, oh, you're a 17-year-old kid And now you're about to make this huge decision that like will impact you for the next several decades as you repay the loan. You don't really know what you're signing. You don't really
No.
truly know what you're signing up for. And there's not much guidance sometimes in that way, at least when we were brought up. Maybe there's more resources now, there's internet and all that stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
and another thing is that, when you're in high school, like I wish there was more classes on helping you to transition to be an adult. Like just little
more practical skills.
Yeah, like life skills. Right?
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to interject a little bit because I, having talked to older folks, they said they used to have classes like called home ec, right?
Oh yeah, that's right. I heard about that.
Home ec, and it would teach you like practical skills, life skills, and things. I wonder why they got rid of all that.
Well, I think it's budget cuts, and probably they don't think that it's important, but it is. It's like
very
things like I think from what I've heard in those classes, they taught you how to balance a checkbook. They taught you how to screw on a light bulb, or build little furnitures and stuff like that.
Yeah, like handiwork or like different classes that provide you with just basic skills or skills that you would consider basic. But a lot of us, we don't know how to do things that are beyond the conceptual and theoretical stuff that they teach you in school, right? And you're absolutely right. It's like one day you go from being sheltered and everything is taken care of for you as a kid. You don't have to think about it. You don't think about, paying the bills or any of that stuff, right? Paying rent or how you need to do certain things or how certain things work in the household. It's just been done for you by your parents or somebody else. And then it's like, welcome to age 18, throw you into the deep end, and you're expected to know these things. And the scary part is that if you make an error on certain things like your credit or right on how those things work, that can damage you for decades as an adult.
Or not even build your credit.
Exactly.
Like I know a lot of people, I know some of my friends, like they never applied for a credit card because they're like, oh, I don't need it. But that's not the point. The point is that you need to build credit.
Right. And I was lucky because my dad actually understood that part. I think your parents too,
they
right?
Did.
But like they put us as a they co-signed or added us on. Not co-signed.
For me, that didn't happen.
Oh, my dad did that for me. Like he put my name, I think as soon as I was able to, or something like that, on his credit card. And even though I couldn't use his card, the fact that I was building credit through that process.
Yeah. So for me, how I did it was, this is gonna age me a little because I don't think this business exists anymore. But Sears.
Yes.
So
Sears.
I opened up a Sears credit card, and at the time we needed a new refrigerator or an appliance. So my parents bought that refrigerator under my newly opened brand new credit card. The limit was very small. It was only a couple $100s, the limit. So I think they had to pay for a portion of it and then, charge that refrigerator a part of it on that card. And every month, they would give me the money to pay for that refrigerator to help me build, credit. And it started very small, like a couple $100s. And every time the limit would increase, my parents would encourage me to use that credit card and pay for my bills that way and make sure that I pay off the balance every month.
Yeah. And I think we were very fortunate that our parents understood that
they
part.
Knew that much. Yeah,
right. And they were able to pass that knowledge on to us. But I do know a lot of people, they don't get that, or their parents didn't know. And what you realize as an adult is that credit in this country, in the US, it's everything. Like if you want to buy a house, if you want to buy a car, any major purchase, even if you have cash, they don't care. Yeah. Right?
Even if you need to rent an apartment or a house, you will need credit. Yeah, they look at your credit history.
You could have all the money for the down payments on these things, but you might not qualify for the loan because your credit sucks.
Or the interest rate is so high that it doesn't make sense to borrow the money. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one thing I think as for sure as an adult. And like I was saying, it's not like when you hit age 18 somebody just hands you this instruction manual. Okay, here's what you should do to set yourself up, right? You kind of have to just go through it, make a bunch of mistakes, which usually is what happens,
Yeah.
right? And then hopefully you learn through the stumbles and fumbles that, you experience.
Yeah. I realized that in my 20s, oh my God, I made so many mistakes. But then I'm glad because I learned from my mistakes. And every day I count my blessings that my mistakes wasn't
Critical, yeah.
detrimental to my future, right? It's like, it's something I learned, I laughed about, and I moved on. And sometimes when I tell my parents, they're a little terrified, but
it's kind of like just through sheer dumb luck that we avoided making critical errors that we could be paying for, to this day.
Exactly.
Right. Because I know I have a couple of friends, like going back to that credit situation where they missed payments on certain things on their credit card. They left the balance on it and they forgot to make a payment because they changed a bank account or an address. Something simple, right?
Something simple.
But they didn't think about it, and boom, it takes years to repair that credit.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's just you don't know what you don't know. And unfortunately, sometimes there's certain mistakes that you make and it's a really big one. Right?
Yeah, and it'll take years to build that back up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we can both agree that in our 20s, we certainly learned a lot. We made a lot of mistakes and
some are embarrassing. Some I feel like
I want to hear about those. Can you tell us all about the embarrassing ones? Let's start there. Band-Aid ripped.
So all right. So for the most part, actually, to the point when I finished grad school, I was living at home, right? And my dad,
you.
I know, I saved so much money, and my parents are great, right? Like you've met them. They're so relaxed, chill. They didn't care what time I got home. They fed me dinner, lunch.
Right.
They made sure I had like my favorite fruits and snacks. And my dad took care of all the bills, or he made sure like the bills were taken care of.
You would give them money, but
gave them money.
He was in charge of actually paying it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yes. And the only thing I was responsible for keeping track of was the cell phone bill, which I paid for my parents as well. At this time, I was going grad school, but I was working and I didn't want to be a financial burden to them. So yes, I did help them financially. So it wasn't like I was living for free, like a leech.
No, right.
Right. And my parents worked very hard for their money. So I wanted to be able to contribute as much as possible.
And you're the type that doesn't like asking them for money.
Never.
I don't think you've ever.
I stopped asking my parents for money once I hit 18. I decided just to make it work.
Well,
right?
You got a job and all that stuff, right?
Yeah,
you found your own money.
Yeah, so I've always been very independent, but I'm grateful that they let me live under their roof.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they helped take care of me when time was precious, right? Because having a home cooked healthy meal is so important, and just having that support system. But that's besides the point. So after grad school, I landed a cool gig, a really good job out in Arizona, right? And I found an apartment on. I don't know where. I probably just searched for it, like in the city, a random apartment.
Craigslist?
Probably. I don't think it was even Craigslist. I think I just searched and they were like one of the first couple links that showed up.
That looks good. And
yeah. I mean, it did look good in the pictures.
And that's the other thing, right? That like, how did you even start? Because nobody teaches you how to go find a place to live.
Yeah.
Up until that point, you didn't have to.
I didn't have to. This is the first time I was moving out on my own. And what I learned real quick is that pictures can be very deceiving. I mean, okay, right. Granted, it wasn't that bad. When we got there, it was well kept on the exterior, right? There was a pool. The laundry room was clean. Like it wasn't anything that's like screams like alarm, like run out of this apartment or break your lease, right? It looked decent. I mean, you were there with me.
Yeah. I went to visit and I helped you get moved in, and it looked fine.
Yeah, it looks fine. And in all fairness, like I didn't have that much time to look for an apartment because that period of
You
finishing
had a
school.
very last minute notice too.
Yeah, I finished school, and there's a lot of things happening in between that period too.
Right.
So you know what? It looked good to me. The price seemed right within my budget. From the salary I had at that moment, it's perfect. I wasn't going to go into debt every month. I was adult enough to try to figure out the financial situation too, right? I didn't want to live beyond my budget of what I was going to get paid. Great, this apartment looked great. Okay, so I had I didn't know that I paid for a cleaning service, right?
Before you moved in.
Yeah, until I looked at my bill, this online bill that they have billing system months later. And I was so young that I didn't even complain and ask for my money back. I literally showed up to this apartment and it looked like this place hasn't been cleaned for like 5 years.
Oh, shoot.
Like the toilets were nasty,
Ugh.
right? And the sink and everything. I'm like,
what did you actually pay for then?
I don't know.
I can't imagine if they actually did clean it and that's what it would look like.
I hope not. Because, I was like, so I spent like a whole day. Next day, I went to Target the next day and I bought like bleach. And I literally bleached down the entire house.
Right.
And made sure everything was clean. And then months later, I saw the statement. I'm like, wait, I paid for a cleaning service. Like, and at that point, I was just.
And that's probably a couple $100s.
I don't know what it. Yeah, it was. And
either way, it was money that you paid.
I didn't even bring up the issue. I was too naive. But let's backtrack to the funny part. The funny part was, I was about to move into the house a week before, and I remember you asking me, "Hey, did you turn on your water and your electricity?" And I was like, wait, I'm supposed to do that?
You were like dead serious. And you're like, wait, what do you mean turn on the water? Isn't it like supposed to turn on by itself? Like I just turn on the faucet, right? And I'm like, I was in shock. I'm like, you're joking, right? I thought you were messing with me.
You laugh at me now, but I actually recently, I had a friend that said exactly the same thing. We asked, hey, did you turn on your water and the electricity? Because, they were so excited to move into their new place. And they said the same thing I said. You were supposed to?
Yeah.
You are supposed
I guess to be fair, like some apartments, they do provide utilities and you don't really have to, open it yourself, right? To get it set up or anything like that.
See, I thought it was just part of the contract, right? It's just like,
I'm surprised they didn't tell you, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the apartment's fault too.
Yeah. Let's blame it on the apartment, right?
Because they didn't tell me who the company, in the area.
Service,
the service, nothing. I didn't get anything.
I will say that for me, the only reason, and I'm joking, I'm teasing you, of course, but like the only reason I knew about that was because at a young age, my dad actually did help teach me, about paying bills and stuff like that. Like he showed us like the bills and he kind of went through it with us. So I knew it's like, and when we moved a couple of times, he would start the service or stop the service. So that's how I knew. Mm-hmm. But I could totally see like how if, your parents were taking care of it and they never really sat you down and went through that with you.
Yeah.
How are you supposed to know?
Yeah. And keep in mind, we haven't moved in like ages, right?
Yeah.
It's not like something I see us do.
And that was your first time moving out because you never had the apartment experience in college, which I had also. So I was in charge of like, turning on the electricity, the gas, all that stuff, and keeping track of it and making payments for all of the other roommates that I had. Right, I would just collect money from them, and then I would be in charge of one of the bills or two of the bills, whatever.
Yeah.
So
I had sticker shock.
But that's pretty funny.
Like,
though.
I remember when I received my gas, I think it was like gas, electric, or in water. I was like almost sticker shock where it's like, wait, the fees itself cost more than how much I'm using.
All the fees, yeah.
All the fees was like, wait, like my bill was like $10, but the fees were like $25. And I'm like, wait a minute, wait, what is this?
Right. And then I think the other thing that I thought was interesting was that your apartment, that one specifically, they didn't like require rental insurance, right? Or renter's insurance.
Yeah, they didn't say anything about it. And I didn't know.
Right.
I did not. And
This is why it's important.
I paid for not having rental insurance. So, you know, in the middle of the night, I feel drip, drip, drip. Next thing I know, the roof was leaking all over my bed.
This was during the monsoon season.
Yeah.
So the storms and the rain was hard.
It's hard.
It was hitting really hard out there. Yep.
But so drip, drip, drip. It water on my face, and I woke up and water was dripping everywhere.
I remember you calling me about it.
And I wanted to cry because I didn't know what to do.
It was coming down bad.
It was coming down bad. So the best I could do was try to move the bed out and as soon as I can. But by the time I woke up, because there are multiple holes. It wasn't just one.
Oh, I see.
So the other side of my bed is soaked, which I didn't know. It didn't wake me up until it started splattering on my face.
And that's a brand new mattress.
It's a brand new mattress I just bought. Yeah. And, they quote unquote fixed it. And when I asked,
the leak because you asked them, right?
Fixed the leak. I told them about it.
I forgot. They didn't even fix it till like a couple
3
of days later,
or
right?
something.
Because when it happened, I remember you had to sleep in the living room or something, right?
Multiple times. We need to get to that.
Uh-oh.
But anyway, so, my mattress was pretty damaged at this point. So I went downstairs. I'm like, hey, is there rental insurance? Like, that comes with this rent? And that guy was like, yeah, we have like a very basic like rental insurance for all of our tenants that we, the apartment provides in the contract. And I looked at the contract. You need to have like $25,000 worth of damage.
Oh my God.
Like, something ridiculous like that.
Right. So basically you're screwed. They didn't cover any of that.
Yeah. So I ended up eating the cost for a mattress.
And take a step back. I mean, you didn't even know what renter's insurance was until that happened. Then you had to look it up to research. What do I do? Is there any, do you have any rights basically as a renter?
Exactly. And then a month later, about another leakage happened. And
so they didn't fix it the first time. Was it in the same place? I forgot.
It's the same place.
Oh, no.
Okay, another leakage happened. But this time, they said I have to, quote unquote, let it dry. I ended up...
Let what dry?
The
hole in the top?
Before they can fix it. I spent 7 days sleeping on my tiny sofa.
Oh, yeah.
And, I didn't want to sleep on the mattress because it's wet now.
It's soaked.
Yeah.
And it was turning yellow, wasn't it? It was
exactly.
weird. Because that's like rainwater seeping through who knows what.
I don't want to think about it. And keep in mind, at that moment, I was too broke to buy another mattress.
Yeah. You spent all your money already just to get the little bit of furniture, like the basics. It wasn't even anything extravagant.
No. I bought... like a $90 sofa from IKEA.
Yeah.
And all of my little nightstands were like $10 nightstands. Like nothing extravagant. Okay. Right. I didn't have anything worth taking in that apartment. Like, no, you would be so disappointed.
You could break in and be like, yeah,
poor
next
student.
house.
Let me give her some money.
I'll leave somebody. Robert leaves somebody instead.
Exactly. So, my biggest investment was my mattress.
Yeah.
Right. Which was only like a couple $100. But to me at that moment was huge.
Yep.
I couldn't afford another mattress. So, you know what? And my contract out there was only a year. So I figured, I'm going to just suck it up and buy, put additional sheets on it and just call it a day. And then it happened again. I slept on the sofa for a week. And then towards the end of and it was fine, but towards the end of the lease, another leakage happened. Yeah. And I ended up sleeping on the sofa for another week.
Yikes.
So, at most of my stay there, I was sleeping on my cheapy little sofa. That, keep in mind, it was so small that it could only fit like 3/4 of my body.
Yeah.
On there, which is ridiculous. And
you're not a big person.
No, I'm only 5 feet tall.
Yeah.
And
so that tells you guys how small that sofa was.
Yeah, and the fact that they didn't even compensate me for my rent. And I asked, and they're like, sorry, no, we can't. I'm like, but at that moment I didn't know how to stand up for myself.
Yeah.
or escalate the issue, right? I just took their words for it because I was very naive. It's still growing pains, right?
Yeah. You thought like, oh, they'll be fair or they'll do things in like, they see the situation and that they're going to be empathetic
and I'm
and
like,
work with you, right?
Yeah, and I'm like, at this point, I have probably slept over a month out in the sofa.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, wait, that's not acceptable.
No, it's not.
And there's renters' rights, right? That I didn't even know about. And then on top of that, this one time they had to break in my apartment.
Sorry.
Oh no. Because the bathroom of someone's downstairs, their pipes bursted downstairs in their bathroom, and in order to access this pipe, they need to enter my apartment when I wasn't there.
And they entered without your permission.
They they left me a voicemail and they said we're entering.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. You didn't even tell me that you had to spend that much time in the couch. You probably were embarrassed about it or something. I remember it happened the first time and maybe the second time. But then like I didn't even know that you had to spend almost a month there. That's crazy.
Yeah, and
and they weren't willing to like compensate or
no, and the house smelled like dust the whole time.
Yeah, because they were fixing the patching the hole
and there's
finally
and there's
after a while.
an open hole to the attic. There's dust flying in the house.
That's crazy.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeesh. Well, and that's the thing, right? You don't know what you don't know. You're young, you're naive, and it's kind of like, well, here's adulthood, right?
Yeah.
And
I didn't want to tell my parents because I didn't want them to worry.
And I think at that point, because it's like you're living out of state, you're living on your own for the first time, a bit of it is also exactly what you said. We don't want our parents to worry. And you also want them to feel like, I can make it on my own.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's almost like, oh, I don't want to have to run back home to the nest or like call mommy and daddy because you're an adult now and you need to figure it out, basically. Right?
Yeah. And this is the first time I've dealt with it. And then, another problem I was running into was taking care of myself. Because, when I was at home, my parents always made sure that I had healthy meals, healthy snacks, right? We barely had any, junk food, if any. It was always healthy snacks.
And you guys would rarely eat out.
Yeah, exactly. And
which you're very lucky, by the way.
I know. Yeah, I count my blessings. But, when I got to Arizona, I'm like, wait, I'm busy. Who's cooking for me? There's no food, right? So I picked up a really bad habit. I was dining out almost every single day. And I was doing very little cooking in between. The only time I probably cooked was like on the weekend. And when I went to the market, it was mostly to buy snacks, like fruits. That was probably my saving grace. But,
Sorry. I think it's... I think with eating out, it's fine, but it's not like the ideal situation. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Eating out is fine if you're going to pick healthy options. Okay, I was not picking healthy options.
I think you were just eating.
I was overindulging.
Well, right. And there's a lot of pretty decent restaurants in that area.
Oh, there's a lot of good restaurants. And my coworkers were so sweet in the sense where they're like, yeah, we want you to be able to, enjoy all the restaurants we love. So we were going out like every night and lunchtime too.
Right. And that's actually, okay, I'm getting annoyed again. This reminds me when you try to make me feel guilty, or you made me feel guilty thinking like, oh, poor Linda, she's out there by herself, has nobody to hang out with, or you didn't know anybody. And we talked about this on a previous episode, but it was like you guys had theme nights with your coworkers.
We did.
For food, right? You guys would try different restaurants, different cuisines, different, dishes and stuff. Mm-hmm. So that kind of falls there, right?
Yeah.
So that's what you guys were doing, and you were definitely indulging.
Yeah. And then, at this point in my life, it was like kind of like the cool thing to go get yourself a $5 latte. Mm-hmm. Every morning, or fancy coffee.
Oh, it's more than that. It was like $8.
No, not the Arizona.
Oh, really? It was like $5.
That's here in LA.
Yeah, that's true.
No, it's like $5. So yeah, so I'm like, yeah, you know what?
I deserve it.
I'm an adult now. I
have to sip on lattes.
I need to sip on fancy lattes.
Yeah, pinkies up.
Yeah, pinkies up. And I was going to Dutch Brothers, which. Oh, so good.
Yeah.
Right. I would
What's
Love.
your drink? Share your drink. There's one drink she was obsessed with.
I
It
was
was the only
obsessed.
drink she would order every
Hot,
morning
hot and cold. They're
without
both good.
fail.
No, it's called the Annihilator. It's basically like a latte with, I think, like white chocolate syrup. And I'm not sure what else, but it was amazingly good. So every morning I would get myself an Annihilator
Before work.
before work. And
Well, I was there like on the days that I visited. When I was there,
you got one too.
Yeah. Okay. So let me clarify some things here. So when I was there, right, since we only had you working in the morning, because I was there just to visit, you know what I mean? I would drop you off, right, at your work, since it was really close
It's like
by
less
to
than
where you
5
live.
minutes.
Exactly. So we would always stop at this drive-through first at Dutch Brothers and get the drink. And the first time we had that drink, because you were like raving about it, it's so good and it's really, it's whatever, right? I just need to get the drink, and I drank it. I'm like, this is good, right? It's sweet and it's delicious. It's creamy, and I'm like, this can't be good for you though. I bet this has a ton of calories. You were in denial. You were defending it, saying, "What are you talking about? It's probably like 100 calories. It's not that bad."
I'm in denial because this is the first time in my life, right, that I had money to spend on a $5 latte. And I thought, whoa, I've made it in life.
Yeah, you had to justify it, right?
Exactly.
But it was funny because you kept denying it. I'm like, no, there's no way something that tastes this good that is low in calories. And then I I annoyed you because then I pulled up the My Fitness Pal app, right?
Yeah.
Those trackers for like calories, and I'm like, okay, let me find out exactly how many calories this sucker is, because it was a big drink too, right? It was like 16 ounces, maybe? No, 20 ounces?
I don't remember.
It was
There's
a pretty
different
big
sizes,
drink, yeah. But you would always get the large
Of
size.
course I would.
That's why. And then we pulled it up, and it's like, oh my God, this thing's like 500 calories or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, again, in disbelief and denial. You're like, no, you're making it up. You just want to say that. And then I showed you, and then you're like, oh, yeah, but that's not super accurate. Like, really?
But okay, I'll admit, by the end of the year, I got out of my denial and I accepted the truth, right? Because I gained 15 pounds.
I was going to say, that was what the wake-up call was.
Yeah, I gained 15 pounds.
And it wasn't healthy weight.
No. And I gained, and keep in mind, I'm very
petite
and like, usually a very active, like, I'm always on the go, and
well, you're moving your body or you're standing, right, most of the day or something.
Yeah, so it's actually like a healthy weight, right? I've always been in the healthy weight range. I gained 15 pounds pretty rapidly. But at this point, I started having health issues. I was tired all the time. Like, my energy wasn't the same as when, before all of this happened. I was tired. I was getting bloated a lot. My stomach was hurting. On some days I was getting like acid reflux, which I've never had before. I was taking like omeprazole over the counter. I couldn't, so that's when I started coming into terms with what I've done with my body in that short year.
And I think you saw photos of yourself too, because I don't think you even recognized.
But it's not even like a healthy weight gain.
No, I know, exactly.
It was like almost like a fluid overload, salt overload,
sugar,
like
fats.
like a fluid retention type of like weight gain that I was having. Like it was like my face looked puffy. It wasn't even like a healthy looking weight gain, that I'm working out, eating right, and I'm gaining that weight. No, it was not like that. And to the point where, I looked at my pictures and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I'm like, why does my face look puffy? Like, this is,
it's not healthy.
No.
Right. Forget the appearance aspect, right?
Yeah.
It's just what brought attention, I think, to what was happening. Because when you're busy and you're in the mix of it and you're just doing things as usual, right? Like that was your normal routine.
Out there.
Everything, right? Eating out every day and like burgers, barbecue, whatever.
Whatever my coworkers came up with.
You're not thinking about any of that from the health side, or at least at that stage. And
I didn't have anyone telling me, right? Don't
exactly,
like my parents, like, oh, don't eat too much of that. It's not good for you. Like a gentle reminder. Like, no, there was no gentle reminder.
That and like you said earlier, this is the first time you actually have like some money now. You're making some money, and you get to enjoy eating out for the first time. You're gonna try a lot of stuff, right? So it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
But I think what the point we were trying to make in sharing, I think this part was same thing. Like as you when you go become an adult, or when you become an adult, right? Technically, quote unquote, we tend to get busy, and we tend to let almost like life takes over. Career, people have kids, whatever it is, and we tend to put our health on the back burner, and you don't think about like how important that is, and that as an adult you are responsible. You need to be responsible for your own health. When you're a kid, your parents might be there to say no to those, right? You can't have that chocolate or that extra piece of cake or that ice cream for dinner. You can't just have ice cream purely for dinner, right?
And what I learned from that year living alone and transitioning to fully taking care of myself is accountability.
Right.
I can't blame my unhealthiness on somebody else. Or my health on somebody else.
You have to learn to be responsible for it.
Yeah, it's my fault for overindulging, right? And I think you can relate to that too.
Yeah, I had the same type of situation where I was really good. Like my parents did a fantastic job. They would always, do their best, as busy as they were, to make us a home cooked meal, right? To make sure that the food that they were feeding us as kids were whole foods, or less in like salt and grease and things like that, just so that it helped us develop good eating habits. But as I got into college, that carried over, which was good, right? When I was living with roommates and things like that, we did try our best to like pack lunches, to cook at home. So I was fine. It wasn't until after I started working after college where I started making some money, right, to support myself, and I had a little extra. And everybody wants to go out and have drinks, or go happy hour, or go dining out at lunch, right? And that's when I started indulging, and I didn't pay attention to health. And I gained a lot of weight, unhealthy weight, right? And same thing, it was having an impact on my energy levels, on my mood, on just a lot of different things. And that wasn't something that I paid attention to.
Yeah.
I was never taught to, I guess I can't say I was never taught to like take care of my health. I mean, my parents did like try in that regard. There was just, when you're an adult, I didn't learn.
It's almost like freedom.
Yeah, you're like off the leash, right?
Yeah,
you're out of this.
You just want to run
There's
wild.
No structure.
Yeah.
I think that's what it was, and it's on you to do those things. So I don't want people to feel like we're placing the blame on anybody.
No.
It's just more of like, this is our experience. This is what we learned. What we learned, right? That was part of our journey, was that we had to come to the realization ourselves that, wait a minute, nobody else is going to take care of your health.
Yeah.
Like, I'm in charge of my own health. And we still have to think about that today, right? At this stage of our life, and going forward is even more important, right?
Yeah.
But my point was just that it just had to be something we had to learn. And even if somebody, I think, gave us a manual and said, here, you should take care of your health, I don't know if I would have taken it as seriously unless I went through it myself.
Yeah. And I think for me also, what I learned, and the biggest mistake I made in my 20s was work-life balance. I guess at this moment in my life, I didn't know my value, my worth. And, I'm always afraid of getting fired, right? That was like a huge stress that I put on myself. So whenever, my managers or my bosses ask if I can cover a shift, it's always a yes. Even if I was working 7 days a week, I will say yes. Even if it's working nonstop, 14 days, I will always say
Which
yes.
you've done many times.
Many times. I did that for many years in my 20s.
With 0 breaks.
Yeah.
There were no days off in that. It was 14 consecutive or sometimes longer than that, right?
Yeah. So I would never, because I always, let's say if someone calls out, I will always say yes. I was afraid of saying no.
And that's one thing you had to learn as an adult, is really learning how to stand up for yourself, but also to say no. Sometimes saying no is more important than saying yes.
Yes. And I was burning myself out. I was losing my creativity, right?
Your drive.
My drive. It's just like I was just, a complete different person. And not to put blame on anyone, but it's because I think for me, it's because my parents, they didn't really have a good work life balance, right? I always saw my mom saying yes to additional shifts, yes to additional job if she was offered. If it can fit in her schedule, she would never say no. But times have changed. For my parents, it was always trying to make enough to put food on the table to make sure that the bills were paid for, right? And I'm lucky that's not my case anymore, and that's not my journey. And for me, I had to learn that on my own, is to have work-life balance.
Yeah, I mean that. For our generation, as millennials and people the young, the Z generation, I think that's what they're called, right? But especially the folks that have been fortunate enough to grow up in this country, right? Our generation, work-life balance is actually a thing.
Yeah.
We have the luxury and the privilege to even consider work-life balance.
Yeah.
Whereas the former generations, the older generations, that wasn't something necessarily that was available to them, especially with our parents being immigrants from other countries migrating here. What the heck is a work-life balance, right? For them, it was survival. It was barely enough to even take care of the bills.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they didn't have the luxury of picking time off or having vacations just for the heck of it, or picking something that they're passionate about. It's just, we need to do work to get money to take care of business, right? So I agree with you. I think we're very, very fortunate to be able to think about work-life balance. But I agree, because times have changed, because we do have that opportunity, it doesn't mean it's not valid. We definitely should think about it, but it's not something that anybody ever taught us to think about. Right, for your overall health and your happiness and mental health, right? Because that carries over to everything.
Yeah. I was getting to the point where I felt unhappy all the time, right? And I couldn't figure out what it was until after a couple of years of just on the go.
Right.
That I realized I need to slow down. Or else I'm
or something needs to
burn.
change. Yeah. And I think that kind of goes hand in hand with, as an adult, you really have to learn how to structure and manage your time effectively. Because what ends up happening when you transition from being a kid to an adult, right? Technically, after college, right? For most people, even up until that point, before you graduate college, everything is structured for you. Everything is already kind of dictated for you, whether it's from your parents or from school, right? Your schedule revolves around classes, for example, discussions, lectures, so on and so forth. It's kind of cookie cutter set up for you. But once you...
It's built in. You have breaks built in.
Yes, exactly. Like summer break or whatever, right? It's there. Someone has already thought it out for you. So you really never had to think about any of that stuff. But once you leave that structure, it's on you now. You have to make sure you take care of business and get things done in a way that works. And nobody can teach you that necessarily, right? They can't tell you exactly what to do, but they can perhaps teach you some of the skills on how to manage time better, how to prioritize, and I know that that was something that I didn't personally know how to do until I started working in my career.
You were
And
working long hours.
yeah, and it was something that I learned through the career was there's no way you can do all these things in a single day, even if you want to. And being able to chunk things out, being able to time block, right? Anchor in times in your schedule to do certain things. But otherwise, and taking breaks, right? Adding breaks into your calendar throughout the year. Those are so important.
Yeah.
Like, yet we're not taught this stuff, especially not at school.
No.
They don't teach you how to do that. So as an adult, you hopefully have to figure it out through trial and error, or someone in the corporate world teaches you how to do that.
Yeah, because when you take that break, it's not a waste of time. That break helps to motivate you, replenish you. And the work that you do after a good break is going to be so much better than if you just kept going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I know that was really important for me and it's still something we're working on. It's not that we figured it out.
No, absolutely. If you think that Will and I have it figured out,
put
please
together.
Take that out of your mind because that is not the case. We are still, for the most part, yes, we're functioning, right? We're doing well.
Functional.
We're functional, and the bills are paid for on time, which is a blessing in itself. And for the most part, yeah, we have some structure, but we're still working on it.
Yeah, and I always get flattered when some of our peers or friends or people. They say really nice things, right? It's like, oh, you guys look so well put together. You guys seem like you have your stuff figured out. And I've had clients where they're like, you seem like you're well put together. And I'm like, I appreciate that. But, in the back of my mind, I'm like I said at the beginning of the episode, it's like, I still feel sometimes like a kid. Like I don't know what the heck I'm doing. I'm just kind of like figuring it out like the rest of us. And that's, I think, one of the really important realizations that I came to learn over the years is that nobody ever really has it figured out.
No.
It doesn't matter what age you are. It doesn't matter how well put together you may seem. We're all just struggling and trying to figure our own journey out.
Yeah. And I feel like once you figure out something, as there's another obstacle,
another layer.
And when you look back, you laugh and you're like, oh my God, why didn't I do that?
Right.
But I feel like even like the most successful people,
yes,
they talk about the mistakes they made in their 20s, 30s, 40s, because there's always room for improvement.
Yes. And being humble enough and letting your ego go to open your mind up to realize like we don't really know much.
Yeah.
No matter what stage or how long you've been doing something, there's always another level, right, to that thing or life.
Yeah.
And you just may not be able to see it yet. But I think acknowledging that you don't know everything opens you up to be able to receive more and learn more over time.
Absolutely.
But I think also like with that, kind of figuring things out, it does come with, like, I'm not saying that somebody had to give me literally like a manual or an instruction handbook and be like,
because even if they did and you followed all of that, the outcome could be different.
Because it's just different. Yeah. Everybody's different.
Everyone's experience is different.
Yeah. So I think what I'm saying is I just wish there was a little bit more guidance in certain areas to prepare you, right?
Yeah.
A transition phase, exactly. or maybe it was something that was taught to you that can really benefit you in the later stages of your life or as an adult. That way you can avoid making the same mistakes or avoid making critical errors.
Yeah.
And like I said, we've been very fortunate where we've kind of skated by some of those critical errors, that could have been very detrimental.
Yeah. But like even influential people, like recently we watched the little clip from Dave Chappelle.
Yeah.
How he talked about, he was young and naive and he just signed a contract.
Yes, because they didn't know how big, he didn't even know how big or successful his the Chappelle show would actually become.
Yeah.
It was just an idea and something that they wanted to do. So he signed a contract.
He's young. He's eager. It's like,
He
oh,
believed in the employer.
someone gave me a contract, and when you're that young and someone offers you something, you always think that they have your best interests at heart, right?
Right.
And quickly you'll learn over time that no, you need to have your best interests at heart, and you need to
Do your research.
Yeah, do your research, read the contracts and know exactly what you're getting yourself into. Don't just blindly sign something.
But here's the thing. I think in his video, he made a really good point, which I agree with, was even he did do his due diligence, but even then, he's just a kid, right? Like you don't know better. Like even if you read it, you might not even understand
exactly.
it. And you, like you said, you assume.
The terminology there is like so complicated.
It's legal jargon, right?
Yeah.
Like even when you sign up for a job, you're signing this employer agreement or contract. But to his point, he was talking about how legally, yes, he signed the document, but does it make that right?
Or ethical?
Because what happened was, and for people that may not have seen the clip, like he was kind of explaining why he walked away from the Chappelle show. And there was this whole period, because at that point, that show and his popularity was at its peak, right? It was so high up there. It was one of the most talked about and influential, I would say, like social cultural thingies or whatever. I don't know what my terminology is, but it was very popular, and he's clearly very successful, and people were like blown away, like, wait, why did he walk away from that show with no explanation? And there were rumors spread about him, like about him going crazy or something like that, doing drugs, all these things that were false, right? And it wasn't until more recently, like decades later, where he really kind of you got to hear his perspective on what actually happened. And basically he got screwed out of the contract. Like he wasn't getting paid basically for that show, apparently.
Yeah.
Right. At least right now when they were streaming it.
Yeah.
The studio or whatever that he was under contract with was streaming his show, and he's not getting a penny from that, even though that's his work, because of the contract that he signed when he was, in his 20s or something? I forget the exact age, but
yeah. And he also mentioned like that it's like legally his name doesn't even belong to him anymore.
That's crazy.
Because he signed the contract
when he was a kid.
Yeah.
Right. Like he was too young. He was too naive. He didn't know better. And it sucks because at that point in your life, you just have, you like you said, you hit it on the head perfectly. You think other people have your best interests at heart. His employers, everybody around the room was telling him, oh yeah, it's a great idea. It's a great deal, Dave, this and that. And he felt like they were looking out for him. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. And now he's still paying for that one time that he got screwed, right? He signed the contract. And it's definitely something that I think a lot of us can relate to, because even if you, like for myself, I've worked with employers where I signed a contract early on. I didn't really know what I was signing necessarily. I was just excited, to sign it. And you realize later, it's like, wait a minute, there's stipulations attached to this that makes no sense, right? Yet it's legal.
Yeah.
It's technically legal on their perspective and what they're able to do to you, but it doesn't make it right. And just because it's legal doesn't ever mean it's ethical or it's the right thing. I mean, slavery used to be legal, right? That does not make it a right thing. And I think that's where the issue is, Yeah. So anyways, that's a different topic. I'm getting a little heated, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
It's just something you learn, unfortunately, right? And some of us, thankfully, sometimes we make it through that relatively unscathed. But then you have some other people where, you're under this contract and you get completely messed up because
or taken advantage of.
Completely taken advantage of. Yep.
Yeah.
And again, it is part of life, and you
live and you learn.
You live and you learn. And I guess when all is said and done, right, I think when we talk about this topic, there's a couple of takeaways, right? What's something that for you, when you look at like being an adult and whatnot. What can somebody that's listening to this take away from it, I guess, other than us complaining? Because I don't want people to feel
I
like we're
don't
just
want people to
complaining.
think that we're just complaining, right? There's
Like, oh,
always
I wish somebody taught me this
no,
or
there's
that,
always a lesson.
Yeah,
to
and you
be
got to take
learned.
some ownership
And
too, right?
yes, number one is take ownership for your actions. And number two, I think the biggest takeaway that I've learned is it's okay to ask for help. If you don't know something, it's okay to ask someone, hey, does this sound right? What should I do?
Right.
I'm in this situation. They may have more experience than you do.
Yeah.
To help you.
Maybe they went through it themselves.
Yeah.
And they were able to make it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also another thing is, if your schedule is so busy, it's okay to ask to bring in help.
Yes.
To help you, to allow your structure to flow a little better.
Yeah, to free up and delegate some of the tasks.
It takes some stuff off your plate.
Yes, that can be delegated.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think another thing that we talked about briefly for me was just learning how to say no, right? Whether it's to learning how to say no to people and understanding that part of being an adult is being able to say no sometimes, not giving in to just because everybody wants you to do something or it's the popular opinion or it's what you feel obligated to do.
Yeah.
That it's okay to say no, because if you say no to the people and they're the right group of people, whether it's friends or family or colleagues, they'll always understand. They're never going to take it personally or hold anything against you. Like if you didn't attend their event because of a valid reason or because, you couldn't do something, you just had to say no because the real people, the people that really care about you, they're always going to look out for your interests, right? And they'll be able to see it from your perspective.
Yeah.
So I think part of being an adult, as hard as that is you have to learn how to say no at some point. And I think you have to realize that you are in, like you were saying, you are in control of your life and you have to take full ownership of that. Yeah. You can't just throw the blame on everybody else or everything else.
Yeah. And just remember, every time you mess up, make a mistake, you feel embarrassed, right? Those are just some signs that you're growing as a person. And a lot of people will experience the same things that you did or made the same mistakes. And it's okay.
Yeah. There's no greatness without risk, right? You have to be willing to risk being embarrassed or failing in order to achieve greatness in anything. But yeah, okay. Wow, that's a lot of stuff. And as always, that's kind of our experience. We're not here to tell you guys like how you should live your life or that, oh, we have it all figured out and we're sitting on our freaking high horses or in our ivory towers saying, this is how we did it, this is how you should do it or whatever. It's not about that. It's just, I think when you share it and you talk about your experiences, people can definitely relate, right? We've heard some of our listeners give us feedback and it's always nice to hear. It's like, oh yeah, that made, I'm going through that too. Or like,
or I can relate to that. That's
I understand what you're saying. Yeah. So hopefully you guys, got some value out of it, or at least some entertainment, or felt like you're not alone. We're in our 30s now, and I'm sure when we hit our 40s, we'll still feel like kids and not have it all figured out.
Yeah.
But that's also the fun part of life.
Yeah, and we'll laugh at some of the mistakes we're making right now.
Gosh, it's like,
it's so simple.
Why didn't we do that in our 30s or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's always hindsight, perfect vision in hindsight. So that's the end of this episode. So make sure you guys, if you enjoyed it, go ahead and leave us a comment or a like on our Instagram at Magnetic Mismatch. Again, we are on YouTube as well. Same handle. And as always, if you can, go ahead and leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. That will definitely help us out a lot. And also, which is exciting, we've been seeing a lot more listeners pop up on Alexa and Amazon Music. So that's pretty cool.
Absolutely.
Yep. So we're on there as well.
And make sure to share our content, right? And share our content, and make sure you tune in every Thursday because that's when we release our new episode.
Yep. So until then, guys,
Bye.
bye.